Hello. I brought a little friend for us to have with us. This is my little
Yeah,
gar.
what that's some kind of New Caledonian gecko, right?
Yeah, this is a gargoyle gecko.
Cool. Yep.
Her name is Persephone, and she's I think 10 to 12 years old.
Cool.
Yeah, but she's one of our main program animals to teach people about these little guys. So I thought I'd have her around while we chat.
Yeah, no, that's super awesome. Does so I actually have a question for you. So
Yes.
I've worked with crested geckos a lot. I've known folks that have bred Leachianus. So I've worked with like Chihulia and Rough Snout and all of those. Do they all regrow their tails except cresteds? I get that question a lot,
That's
and
what
I
I was going
don't
to
know
ask you
enough.
too. This one she actually
I've
has a regrown tail.
and I've never seen a Leachianus, a gargoyle gecko. I've never seen any of them with stump tails.
No,
You
I've
know what I
never
mean?
never either. And we have two chihuahuas, and I know the tokay gecko lost his tail and he's
Tokays
regrowing it.
definitely regrow their tails, but
Yeah,
like I was just curious because they're all really close related to crested geckos,
yeah, and
and crested geckos don't. But does any of their cousins?
that
And it seems like they all regrow their tails, so I think that's unique to crested geckos.
yeah, and I was told it has to do with a hormone in their brain that they're missing.
Oh, maybe I haven't heard that.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's just something I heard, and I was like, I have no idea how true this is. I'm gonna have to look it up one day.
I don't know. I don't know if we know enough.
Yeah.
Because my own personal opinion or my own personal hypothesis might have been from inbreeding, because
Oh yeah.
all the those all those New Caledonian geckos that we have in captivity are really pretty badly inbred,
Yeah.
and so I don't know if that was something maybe they lost along the way by being inbred. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep,
This is 7 Up.
nice. A really plain Jane sand color, huh?
Yeah, I absolutely love his color because he's different from all the other ones that we have surrendered to us. He's very green. Um, and the other ones usually are like the Harley Quinn colors and the fancy colors that people sell at the markets and everything. So
Yeah,
I just love
exactly.
how he looks because of the fact that you don't see it very often. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really nice. I have four crested geckos here. I have one that was surrendered to me from one of the local high schools,
Oh,
and then I have three that I bought as hatchlings out of Birmingham, Alabama, for a
okay.
student's research project.
Love that. And then I
Mhm.
saw a picture of you with a day gecko.
Yep. So I've done lots with Phelsuma with Madagascar day geckos. One of the chapters of my dissertation was all about Phelsuma grandis versus Tokay. So I actually measured how sticky their feet are,
Oh,
and
okay.
kind of did a compare and contrast against Tokay and Phelsuma grandis, the giant Madagascar day gecko.
Oh, that's so
So I've
cool.
worked with them a lot, and then I think in grad school I had grandis, I had Phelsuma standing eye, Phelsuma lineata, laticata, and dubia, all in the lab. So I
Okay.
had a whole bunch of day geckos in the lab. I did graduate school at University of Idaho, so I
Nice.
had a bunch of live animals in the lab, and then summer before last, I did field research in Mauritius, which is a little island in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Madagascar.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
so, yeah, so we got to study the Phelsuma that you only can find on that little island. So that was Sapediana, Phelsuma sapediana, ornata, Rosa glaris, and Gambuya.
Oh, that's so amazing. We only have
Yeah,
one day gecko at the rescue. It's a standing day gecko.
and
Um,
they seemed really nice.
yeah,
Like, I've heard that they're kind of the more chill, a little more handleable because their skin doesn't tear as much. And
that makes sense. Sorry, I got
yep,
a companion on my head now.
no, that's
Uh,
okay. I think the second worst gecko bite I ever got was from a Phelsuma standing, though.
oh,
Phelsuma standing eye.
really?
Yeah, because I was testing them. So when I kind of measure how sticky their feet are, it doesn't hurt them, but they don't like being held and
No.
positioned in funny ways. So they kind of tend to get pissed off.
Yeah.
And so eventually she kind of clamped onto my hand and then kind of did that
Oh,
alligator
did the
turn.
twist. Oh,
And so I
uh,
had this like spiral set of scratches.
yeah. I've only ever been bit by a tokay.
Oh,
But
yep.
luckily it was just right here on my arm. It wasn't it wasn't anywhere that would hurt very much, but it just left little teeth marks. It didn't hurt anything other than like a little clamp. But
And that's what they do.
yeah,
Yeah. So I worked with them a lot in grad school too. We would have the big leather gardening gloves.
yeah.
That was kind of the only way. And then what we would do, we would get them out of their cage and then put, like the white athletic tape. We would, in essence, give them a little muzzle of
Oh,
athletic tape. And then we could take our gloves off and handle them once they were taped
contained.
closed. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And there was actually a question on here from one of the questions that was submitted. Why are tokay, where was that question?
Why are tokay so
Why are
mean?
tokay so mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I have a hypothesis. So in the wild, they're the kind. I mean, they're from Southeast Asia, so you can find them anywhere from China down through Thailand and Indonesia. And as far as anything moving around in the trees at night, they're kind of the top predator.
Oh.
Anything that gets near them that they can see is going in their mouth. That includes small mammals, birds, other reptiles. So I think they're just kind of used to being top dog. This is my tree. Either I'm eating you or I'm chasing you out of my tree.
That makes
That's
sense.
as far as they can see. So I
That
think they're just big and mean and angry because they're used to getting their way.
that makes so much sense.
Yep.
I also
I
love
think
that they vocalize so much.
yes, yeah. I've done work in Southeast Asia, and it's a really that very classic.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then, sorry, I'm just getting out Miss Luna here. She's the Leachianus gecko that we have at the
Oh,
rescue.
cool.
She's very sweet. She's older though. She's I think she's somewhere around 13 years old.
And does she vocalize a lot?
A little bit, yeah. Very quiet little like gruffs. Like it's so
Yep.
cute. So when she's angry at me, she lets me know when she's done being handled.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's quite pretty. She's smaller. We just got a baby in as well.
Cool.
But we'll see if that's a male or female, and we're not sure which subspecies it is.
Yeah, and I've talked to one of my students about that. You're thinking subspecies as in like what location
Locale, yeah.
from? Yeah, yeah. And I've had discussions with my students here
Splitters
about
versus
inbreeding.
lumpers.
Yeah, about inbreeding and trying to keep true lines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're just inbreeding them back against themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good.
That's very fair, very fair. That's why
But
I like it when I hear breeders say, no, I gotta put it in a new bloodline because they're getting a little too inbred. And I'm like, oh, thank God, at
yeah,
least some of the breeders understand that this is an issue.
right. And I've seen crested geckos with different sized eyeballs.
Oh,
I've seen them with scoliosis. I've seen them with overbites where their bottom jaw sticks out.
oh.
So
MBD related as well, or just from?
I don't
Yeah.
know. Just yeah.
Oh,
Maybe the lack of calcium.
yeah.
But lots of kind of weird. That's why I was thinking maybe their tail loss was a weird byproduct of being inbred.
That could be it.
And I know the other thing I know is I don't think the crested geckos have a really great they're endangered in the wild. I'm pretty sure they don't have a really great population even
Yeah.
in the wild.
Yeah.
And I know genetically in the last few years, crested geckos have actually been split into two species,
Oh,
which we didn't know back in the 80s when we brought them.
no.
So I wouldn't be half surprised if all of our pet cresteds might actually be a weird hybrid of the two wild species,
That would be very interesting, actually, yes.
which now you've got two really, really closely related species that were then hybridized and then inbred.
Ooh.
So who knows what's going on with them genetically.
Yeah, that very interesting. I
Mm-hmm.
love it when I get little alerts on my phone from Google, and it's just like new species has been discovered, and I'm like, I love that Google knows me so well.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind is there's kind of two different flavors of new species discovered.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's like, hey, scientists were finally able to get to this mountaintop, and there's a weird type of lizard there that we didn't know was there.
yeah,
Local folks probably already knew it was there,
100%.
but maybe that's new to science. That's kind of one version. The other version is we thought this species was found in this whole area, but then we did enough genetics to know the western part is genetically different enough to call it a different species.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew the whole thing was there. We just didn't know they were as genetically distinct as we thought they were.
Yeah, and I think that's mostly what the articles that I've been reading say.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, oh,
exactly.
it's not just one, it's
It's
multiples.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that's surprising. Sometimes, and then the opposite will happen too. Is we'll say, oh, we've always thought this group was two separate species because they're colored different or something. But then we look at the genetics and they're genetically almost identical.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, really? That's one species, not two.
Yeah.
So it kind of it's always an evolving science a little bit.
Makes sense. Sorry, before we forget though, I would like you to introduce yourself to Stream if you
Yeah.
don't mind.
Yeah.
Just to let them know what you do and where you work and everything like that.
Yeah. So my name's Dr. Travis Hagee. I'm an associate professor here at Mississippi University for Women in Mississippi. Despite the name of the university, we do have male students. Back I think we're one of the oldest universities that was designated just for women. We've been around since the 1880s.
Wow.
And then I think in the 1980s, we had to start letting male students in, but we decided to keep the name anyways. So even though we're Mississippi University for Women, 20% of our students are men.
Okay.
So take that for whatever it's worth.
Very fair.
So we're a really small little liberal arts school. We're about 20 minutes from Starkville, Mississippi, where Mississippi State University is. So we have a big university nearby. I work with a lot of biology and engineering faculty over there. But I got my start. I grew up outside of Seattle, so I know Vancouver pretty well. I did my undergraduate at Western Washington University down in Bellingham. So actually, if you go down to the Costco in Bellingham, I worked there as an undergrad, and we had tons of Canadians come down.
Yep. My mom was there yesterday.
Yes, exactly, right. So Bellingham is where I did my undergraduate degree in cellular biology, and then I went to graduate school in Moscow, Idaho, where I got a PhD in evolutionary biology. So I was up in the Northwest for a long time. And then after Idaho, I did a postdoc at Michigan State University in science communication. So I was running the biology departments, a lot of their outreach and public engagement and meet a scientist events and taking scientists from Michigan State into public schools. And so I was doing a lot of that around Michigan.
Nice.
And across the US, a lot of programs we were running, like we had a Darwin Day Roadshow. So for Darwin's birthday, different high school teachers across the US could kind of apply, and I would organize between local scientists and local high school teachers in Florida or California or Texas or Michigan or anybody that applied.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then 2018, I started the faculty position here.
Oh, awesome.
Yep. So I've been here for 7 years. And so my research, I teach classes like introductory biology, evolution, zoology, biomechanics. So thinking about how an animal works from a mechanics or engineering perspective, experimental design. So teaching students how to kind of design an experiment or do the statistics for an experiment. And then so those are kind of the classes I teach. And so then on the research side of things, I study geckos. So that's why I was so excited to talk about geckos. I study anything from how their topads work, from, again, an engineering perspective, to their evolutionary history. So like, when did topads evolve? Which species have them? Which species don't have them? Those kinds of questions. And also I'll do a lot of field work looking at how do they use their topads. Their topads are all really different, and they're a really cool, weird example of kind of naturally occurring nanotechnology. And so how did this evolve? Where did it evolve? Why did it evolve? Why are different species different? How do they use them in the wild? Why do some species live on rough tree bark and others live on smooth leaves or rough rocks or deserts or tropical environments? So I get to do some field work, a little bit of engineering, and evolutionary biology.
Okay. With the like engineering and things like that, you know what? One of the main questions I get asked is how snakes move and how they use their muscles. And I know that's something that's been studied, but not quite thoroughly, right?
Yeah, Yeah, it's a weird thing to wrap your head around because snakes can climb.
Yeah.
Some snakes are really good
Oh
climbers.
yeah.
Um,
We got carpet pythons, and they'll just go right up.
yep, yep. And I know that there's some interest in actually mimicking that for robotics.
Yes.
If we can understand how that works and build robots that can mimic it, they can kind of climb over as long as they can get some kind of traction. They can kind of climb in, around, or through anything.
Yeah. Be really cool.
So really, I think it all kind of breaks down to being able to twist your body enough to be able to push
Hmm.
on things.
But then, like,
And
we've also seen snakes like just move perfectly straight without twisting their bodies. It's just so interesting. And then there's like sidewinders and things like that, and the different
exactly.
types of movement. It's fascinating to me. I love learning about it.
Yep. Yeah,
Uh,
they have a lot of different locomotion styles.
yeah. So I did want to ask, like, how did you get into animals? How did you get into geckos? Do you have an
Yeah,
origin story?
I do. I know as much as anybody does, I guess. Yeah. So I was the kid that all through grade school, this was pre-internet. So I had a whole bookshelf of dinosaur books at home. I knew all the dinosaur names. I was the dinosaur kid
Yes.
in grade school. I knew all the dinosaurs. I think I was the first Jurassic Park movie came out in 96 or 93. I was, I think, 9, 10 years old. So I already knew all the dinosaurs. I already knew the Velociraptor was really a Deinonychus. I already knew all of that. So Jurassic Park came out at just the right time. I was already plugged into all of that. So I really was into dinosaurs, but animals in general, right? We went through pet goldfish. I went through pet rats. I went through pet hamsters, pet lizards. We were also an outdoor hiking, fishing, hunting, camping family, and so like, going hunting with my dad. It was sad to see a deer die,
Mm.
but I got to go look at its tongue and look at its hooves and like see all of the ticks leave when like the looking at the deer. So I got to see a lot of kind of cool biology. I was really excited about the biology part,
That's fair.
getting to be up close and like pet it, and look at its tail, and you don't get to see that stuff up
No.
close.
No.
Um, so I got kind of that was the fun part of doing those outdoor activities was getting to see animals up close.
Very fair. Um,
Hmm.
I've never been like hunting or camping. My family was more into the fishing side than the hunting side. But uh, one day, maybe I'll go camping.
But
Um,
even getting to like hold a trout,
yeah,
right? Like you see them maybe as a shadow move by really fast, but
yeah. My uncle does a whale watching, or did, sorry, whale watching company. So
out in like the San Juans.
yeah, so we got to see a lot of like orcas and things growing up. So
Yeah,
that's
right,
very different than a lot of people get to do. But I loved it so much. So
right.
I
But
get that.
even getting to see them far off, like
Yeah.
that's yeah. So I was always kind of attracted to animals, and so the other thing. So I was way into dinosaurs as a kid, and the other thing I was really into was Legos.
Yes.
So right, because I was building like cool off-road trucks and with like jet engines on them and wings and all of that. Um, and so when I was a little kid, if you'd asked me what do I want to be when I grow up, it was a paleontologist.
Hmm.
Up until I got into probably high school, and then started to understand how evolution works. And from my perspective, evolution was the engineering of biology.
Makes a lot of
And
sense.
so it was like, well, now I want to study evolution because that's the how does it work for biology. So up until all through undergrad, I wanted to kind of study the genetics of adaptation. That's what I was interested in. And then I got into graduate school and realized genetics is really hard. Genetics is difficult, and I want to encourage everybody to go into genetics. I think it's super interesting. It's just really complicated
Yeah.
and requires a lot of statistics. And statistics definitely wasn't my strong suit. I was much more of the calc trig type of math person. Statistics felt like a different kind of math,
Yep.
um, more of a math of what might happen, not what is the answer, which was a different way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
Um, and so it wasn't until grad school that I realized you could literally blend engineering and biology. And so that's kind of when I got honed in on geckos and their mechanics was in probably my second year-ish of grad school.
Evolution is always something that's fascinated me, and like how these different branches came off, and I've seen the picture of that snake fossil that was found with the two little back legs. And that just, I was like, yep, I love snakes. This is great. I love this so much. But, speaking of evolution, one of the questions we wanted to talk about was, do we know when geckos are? What are geckos? Did they split off from reptiles? How long ago did they evolve? Was it before the dinosaurs, after the dinosaurs, for kind of a timeline kind of thing?
Yeah. So geckos are a group within lizards. So they're a type of lizard, just like you would say, dogs are a type of mammal. And we have lots of different kinds of dogs and wolves and coyotes and right. So they're a subgroup within lizards, and they're based on their DNA. They're one of the earliest branches of lizards. So geckos, and then all other lizards are kind of the two family groups. So they're a really, really early branch of lizards. And so they split off from the rest of lizards about 200 million years ago. So right around the dawn of dinosaurs.
Oh, wow.
So they were around during dinosaurs. They weren't the geckos we have today. They were the great, 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 great ancestors of all the different kinds of geckos we have now. But there was a gecko or a gecko ancestor around with the dinosaurs.
That's awesome.
And that,
fascinating to me.
Yeah, and that actually shows too, that was around the time of Pangea and the breakup of Pangea. So that's kind of why we have geckos on all the continents, except there probably were geckos on Antarctica
when it was warmer,
before it turned into Antarctica. Yeah. And that's why they have the distribution they have. And that's why like the New Caledonian geckos are also weird and unique, but their closest relatives are the Australian and New Zealand geckos, because New Caledonia, New Zealand, and Australia were all together, connected at one point. Yep.
Yeah. That's like one of the fascinating things that I remember learning years ago was that mammals evolved before flowers and sharks evolved before trees. I don't know how true it was, but that's what I was told.
You said sharks before trees, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think so. Because flowering plants, I think, were Cretaceous. And reptiles and mammals are sister groups, meaning they're each other's closest relative.
Yeah.
So even though we think of mammals coming after dinosaurs, mammals and reptiles split at the same time.
Yeah, they each other around. Yeah. A lot of people don't. I think they forget about the little tiny mammals that were there.
Yep. And the early mammals, the ancestors of mammals, didn't have all the things that we associate with mammals. Fur, live birth, milk. That all came along the way after they split from what would go on to become reptiles.
Oh, okay.
So those early, sometimes if you look at really old textbooks even, or really old children's dinosaur books, they have reptile-like mammals, because those are the early mammals, but they still have all the reptile-like traits.
Yes.
The traits that reptiles kept, and the traits that mammals swapped out: scales for fur, eggs for live birth, and like monotremes, platypus and echidnas still lay eggs.
Exactly.
They're mammals, and so some of those traits still persisted for a long time.
And speaking of live birth and all that, I know that most reptiles are egg layers or oviparous. I know, like, we have boa constrictors and things like that, so we know that some give live birth. Are there any geckos that give live birth, or do they all lay eggs? Do you know?
I know there are other lizards that give live birth, that have live birth.
Yeah, because
I think all geckos are egg bearing.
And they always lay two.
I do know one or two.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is a weird thing that they got stuck with. Because other lizards can have big clutches of eggs.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there are any live bearing geckos.
Interesting.
That I can think of. I think they all lay one or two eggs. And so the other thing with that is often lizards that have the adaptation for live birth, it's a way to deal with cold weather. So like lizards that live in high elevation or colder environments, if you lay your eggs and your eggs freeze, you're done.
Yeah.
But if you can carry the eggs around, you can keep them warm, you can maintain whatever temperature they're in.
Most of the snakes that we have here are live bearers, so that makes sense.
Yep. And really, you could think it'd be a simple change to make. You just wait longer and longer to lay your egg, so the legs exposed shorter and shorter. The embryo's getting farther and farther along through the development, and then they just hatch inside instead of if you just keep delaying laying your eggs until they hatch inside you. Now you're live birth.
Yeah.
So depending on which origin, there's lots of skinks that have live birth, snakes. That's evolved multiple times within lizards.
Yeah, we have a monkey-tailed skink, and I know they're viviparous. They actually have a placenta, and
that's where I was going next. Yeah, it's like how complicated is it? Really, just an egg hatching before it's born, or is it actually connected with placentas,
the yolk, and all that?
It's all over the place.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating to me. But the poor monkey-tailed skinks, those babies are gigantic.
Are those from the Solomon Islands? Is
yes,
that the big skink I'm thinking of?
Solomon Island skinks, yeah. The baby's like a third of the size of the mom. It's
but they're like iguana sized, right? They're really big, aren't they?
Ours are. I think the body is probably about a foot long, and then the tail's longer than that.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a male and a female and a baby. We managed to get a baby born in our facility. We're so happy about that. But yeah, the poor mom. I could see her getting bigger, and I'm like, oh girl, I'm so sorry.
Right. Yeah, no, that's super cool. Yeah, I know live birth has evolved multiple times within lizards, and my understanding is it's usually a cold weather, a way to protect your eggs from getting too cold.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And now I'm trying to think of any geckos that live in cold environments. And I don't think there are any live-bearing geckos.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
I know that there's North American geckos further south.
Right.
But we don't have any in Canada.
No,
that I know of.
I think no.
Too north.
The only like native geckos are like the Coleonyx, which are kind of a think of like a New World leopard gecko.
Oh yes, and yeah, they're desert dwellers.
Desert,
right?
New Mexico, Arizona, just up a little bit from Central America.
Okay.
And then of course
invasive geckos.
What's that?
I was going to say that.
And then of course that's where I'm going next. Yeah.
Sorry.
Then here in Mississippi we have the Mediterranean house gecko. I have one of those.
Yep.
We find them all over. We find them in the buildings. We find them outside the buildings here. Florida's got at least three hemidac different house gecko species I can think of. They've got day geckos too. They've got nidonoles. They've got all sorts of everything. And Hawaii also has a bunch. They have tokays.
Yeah.
They have chameleons.
I was on Oahu and I was catching day geckos.
Was it the little three red spots?
Yes.
Yep. So that's Philsuma laticata, the gold dust day gecko.
It was
so the fun thing.
Just in the sorry, it was just in the hotel pool side. I was like,
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The really cool thing about Hawaii is because it's a volcanic island, so that land was never connected to anything else. So the only native reptiles there are like the sea turtles and the sea snakes. So there's not supposed to be any amphibians there or any lizards really. And so the indigenous Hawaiians, before they became the indigenous Hawaiians, they were Polynesians. They brought house geckos from Asia with them. I don't know if it was on purpose or by accident, but all of the kind of the Asian little brown geckos you would find in your hotel room at night probably came with the Polynesians 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. So they've been there quite a while. And then obviously during World War II, there was a lot of activity around the Pacific. So I think that's when a lot of the like the day geckos and the green anoles, the Anolis carolinensis here from the southern U.S., we brought them to Hawaii. So the really cool part is now that we have all these weird geckos and lizards from all these different corners of the world, how do they interact and share habitat? Because you've got North American stuff with Madagascar things, with Asian things. So it's kind of a really cool natural experiment to see how all these species interact that didn't evolve with each other.
Yeah. We actually, we had little hitchhiker geckos surrendered to us, a Mediterranean house gecko and an Indian house gecko. They came over in shipments, and that's how, I don't know how they caught them.
Nurseries, if you want to go find weird geckos or anoles, go to like a nursery in In Mississippi, you'll see all sorts of weird lizards.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm still fascinated with the fact that they actually caught them because they're so fast.
yep.
But we've had them for I think 2 years now, and we, they're just gonna hang out with us now because we can't bring them back. But
Right. And they're so small, they're probably not really great display animals, right?
no,
Like because I've got a house gecko here, and I pretty much went and got some chunks of rock from a garden store and glued together a little rock pyramid, and it just kind of hides in the rocks,
yeah, aw,
during the day. If you came in here at 9 p.m., it's out in its
oh
cage,
yeah,
but
yeah.
during the day, there you can like see a little glint of an eye in a crack.
Oh, sorry, that brings up a question that popped into my head.
Yeah.
Geckos. We always thought they were nocturnal, but I've heard now that we think they're crepuscular. At least crested geckos are.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That's a good question. I guess like you're thinking crepuscular, that they're active during dawn and dusk
Yeah,
instead of active all night long. I don't know, actually, to be perfect. I don't know if I'm sure someone has probably studied that,
yeah.
but I don't know the study off the top of my head. I definitely know. So like my crescent geckos here, I have all their lights on timers,
Yes.
and I'll make the little Rapashi diet
Mm-hmm.
paste, put it in there. If the lights turn off and I come back in 20 minutes after the lights have gone out, they wake up and they go straight for the food bowl.
100%.
So they're waiting for the lights to go out. They know what time it is. They know where the food is. What they're doing in here at 2 a.m., I'm not sure, but I know by 9:30 they've already gotten up and eaten and found the food. So they could be very crepuscular, or mine just know the timing of the lights.
They might just really like schedules.
Right. And I'm trying to think. So in graduate school, one approach some scientists that study geckos, what they'll do, or anybody who studies nocturnal animals, if they keep them in the lab, one thing to keep in mind is if you're measuring things like performance, like how hard they can bite or how fast they can run, if you're measuring anything like that and you have a nocturnal animal, is it really fair to wake them up during the day to then do your measurements?
Yeah.
How fast, if somebody came into your house at 2 a.m. and made you run a sprint, how well are you really going to do? And so one thing people do is if you have a room with all your animal cages in it, they'll invert the lights. So the lights are off all day and on all night. So then you can walk in there at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, but the lights are off. So from the animal's perspective, it's nighttime.
It's like 2 a.m. instead.
It's 2 a.m. And if you're a nocturnal tokay, that's great.
Yeah.
And so I want to say we've done, in graduate school, we did that. And the tokay, I want to say we're in there croaking all night long, meaning all day long. So I wouldn't be surprised if tokay were active all night, but that's also in the tropics.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that varies from group to group.
Makes sense.
And you've got day geckos that are active during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm totally hypothesizing, but I could imagine that might be more common for something like a leopard gecko.
Yeah.
Because a leopard gecko, if you're in the desert, if you get out early, right after sunset, the rocks are still hot and you can get a little heat. But as you get later and later into the night, staying warm is going to get harder and harder.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see that being common for desert species. Like as it gets colder and colder and colder, things just get harder to do. And so you might shut down later into the night.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if anybody's ever, I'm not aware, and there aren't any studies that jump to my head that have looked at that. I'm not saying somebody hasn't studied it, but
Oh,
somebody would have to go out all night and measure how many geckos they find.
very fair. Sorry, I just want to get to some of these questions here before I
Yeah.
forget to do them. I had a very funny question: is do lizards sweat?
I did see that question. No, to my knowledge, no. I think that's a uniquely mammal thing, and not even all mammals sweat. When I think it's humans and horses, I know definitely sweat,
Mm-hmm.
and I think like dogs and cats might only sweat out of their pads.
I think I heard that as well. Yes.
And I think because I googled it earlier today, and I think things like hooved animals, I don't like horses. No, horses sweat, but some of the other hooved animals don't sweat at all. So
Okay.
Um, and usually for a lizard, it's because sweating is an adaptation for cooling down.
They don't want to
Uh,
cool down.
it, exactly, it's usually the opposite is the problem. They're trying to stay warm enough. Um, and I think I did see something about it, some amphibians sweating, but I don't know if they're doing that for thermoregulation to cool off, or that's just keeping their skin moist, or I don't know if that's even the same thing. Their skin's not really the same as ours.
Not at all. Yeah. That makes sense.
So yeah, that was like, the Google AI answer that amphibians also sweat. And I'm like, I don't know if I don't know if that's the same thing. So
uh,
no, that's a sweating's a mammal thing and only some mammals.
Very fair.
Mhm.
And then, what? How big are their brains we have here? Um,
Not very big.
no, I mean, here, let me get her. Um, Come here, little one. We have a little leopard gecko here.
Mhm.
Her name is Pumpkin, and what's always made us laugh is if you hold them up and look through their ears, you can see in one ear and out the other.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, there's not much going on up there.
No, but some of the geckos aren't maybe very well known for being very intellectual. But big brains are expensive,
hmm
and usually it's the warm-blooded animals that can afford that. So it's birds and mammals for the most part.
Makes sense.
But some of the varanids, some of the monitor lizards, are really active. Even I don't know if you've been able to get. I don't know. Does Eastern BC have whiptail lizards? Maybe not.
I don't know about Eastern. I've only studied the Western here.
Right. So if you get down into like Eastern Oregon, Eastern Washington, you'll see whiptail lizards, which are
Okay.
they're not all that closely related to monitor lizards, but think almost like a miniature monitor lizard. A
Okay.
monitor lizard the size of a leopard gecko. Um, but super fast, always moving around, strong sense of smell, forked tongue, digging up larvae and eggs. They're maybe one of the more intelligent kind of monitor lizards in general. They
Oh,
maintain higher body temperatures. They're active. They're out looking for food, digging stuff up. Um, so if you were going to say which lizard's the smartest, I would probably say some kind of monitor lizard.
oh, really? Okay.
Mhm.
I We know that tegus are really smart, so I just
There
immediately
you go.
think of them because I've seen them
Yep.
use puppy potty pads.
Right. And but like even my leopard gecko has a corner she likes to poop
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
You know.
that makes sense.
Um,
Sorry, she's licking my hand. Uh, Thank
well,
you.
was there a question about
Uh,
tongues on here?
oh yes, do any
Do geckos extend
geckos
their tongue?
like a chameleon and grab their food?
Right. And this we can connect this back also to the eye question. There was a question about geckos' eyes. And so geckos' eyes, most geckos, I think leopard geckos don't fit this, but most geckos have their eyelid is actually permanently closed. So their eyelid is a clear lens.
Mm,
So they're always looking through their eyelid. Same thing as snakes.
yeah.
Um, and so they can't blink, and the only way they can clean their eye is using their tongue.
Yeah.
So geckos have a big flat tongue, more importantly for cleaning their eye. And so they can't do the chameleon tongue thing because they need their big flat tongue for cleaning their eye.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that makes sense. And yeah,
Yep.
so we know these guys, the leopard geckos, have eyelids because that's usually the main issue they have when they're surrendered to us, is they have stuck
Oh,
shed
they,
in their
yeah.
eye.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the poor little guys.
So chameleons have kind of that actually projectile tongue. We tend to think kind of the cartoon frogs do,
Yeah.
but in reality, frogs' tongues are connected right at the front of their mouth. So that instead of shooting their tongue out, they kind of flop it out because the hinge is right. They don't really have bottom teeth, but the hinge is right there at the tip of their jaw. So they flop their tongue out and then pull it back.
Okay.
But there are some.
Such a
What's
funny.
that?
Sorry, so just like that's such a funny visual.
Well, go look at like YouTube videos of high speed frog tongues,
I'm
and
gonna,
it's this big flat like plop.
I'll definitely
Um,
have to do that.
yeah, but there are some salamanders that have really similar projectile tongues, like chameleons.
Okay.
So chameleons aren't the only ones that have that shoot it out tongue. Some uh, salamanders do.
Okay. Yeah, not you.
No, not the
As
leopard
she tries
gecko.
to lick my finger again.
Yeah, yeah. No, they have the nice kind of almost flower petal tongue.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Hmm.
Um, we have another question here is geckos changing colors. So
Yeah.
we've definitely seen them fire up the crested geckos and
Hmm.
definitely the Leachianus gecko. She changes color quite often. And how they do that. Now, I was told it has something to do with the length of the cell, but I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
understanding it quite very well. So I wanted to ask if
I,
you.
I think that's pretty close. I don't know if it's necessary. And so chameleons are really well known for being able to change color,
Yeah.
right? They can go from reds to greens to yellows to black to white. But like you said, most other lizards, geckos included, can kind of change their shades. They can go from a sandy brown to a chocolate brown. And I'm sure most of your Leachianus can do shades of gray or shades of green, and
Yeah.
your day gecko can go from drab olive green to emerald green.
Yeah.
Um, and so I haven't studied that a lot, but I think it's similar to kind of the way squids can change color, squids and octopi. I don't know if it's the whole cell or part of their cell, but it's those cells are called chromatophores. They have the pigment in them. And so either shrinking down the pigment or they're spreading the pigment out within the cell.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that means the cell itself is shrinking and growing or just the internal part of the cell is shrinking and growing. But if you shrink all that pigment down, it's harder to see. Or if you spread it out, you can see it. So if they've got like black pigment and they spread it out, they're going to look darker. Or if they shrink all that black down to a little pin dot, they're not going to look very dark.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I
So they're
was.
they're they're moving the pigment around inside their cells. They're
Yeah.
spreading it or shrinking it down.
Okay. Yeah, I was.
So you were pretty, yeah, you were pretty close.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember hearing something about how octopi do it. So I was just like, oh, is this the same for these little guys? Well, maybe not you so
It's
much, but.
I think it's superficially similar, yeah.
Okay.
Um, and that's usually only the colors that are pigmented, right? And so that's your blacks, your browns, yellows, and oranges. Because the blacks and browns are going to be melanin. The oranges and yellows might be like a carotenoid or something, but there's an actual colored material in there.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, the like the greens and the blues, they don't actually have green or blue pigment. What they can have is what's that?
Structural.
Structural, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's actually reflectance,
Yes.
kind of. It's almost like those cherry, like those paint color cars where if you look at it at a different angle, it changes color.
I was gonna say like the
It's
nail
kind of
polish
a
behind me.
nail polish. Well, see, cars are nail polish. Your
That's what I
mind
was
goes to
thinking.
one place or another. Um, but yeah, so actually, there's a structure inside their cells that reflect light, and so they're probably adding pigment with those kind of reflective structures to kind of change what type of green or what type of blue they're showing off.
Yeah, and that's also what birds do, correct? Like with their feathers.
I want to say bird feathers, butterfly feathers. There's
Yes.
very few green and blue pigments in nature,
Yeah.
to my knowledge. Usually, it's easier to to artificially reflect those colors, kind of using hollow structures, than actually make a pigment that is that color.
It makes sense too. We don't see a lot of blue in nature.
Right, and
Yeah.
even because I'm thinking way back when we were first designing pigments for our clothes, like purple and blue were
The royalty colors because they're hard to find.
because
Yeah.
they're really weird colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, that I love looking at close-ups of butterfly wings. I think it's so cool to see the little scales.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
um,
Yeah.
Now, another question we had was, can geckos swim? I had a
No.
kid ask me this the other day, and I did not know the answer.
Well, I mean, if you threw them in a pool, probably,
they
but I don't.
they wouldn't
I
want
don't
to.
think they're. Yeah, yeah. I think lots of animals can kind of instinctively swim, but I don't think there are any geckos that you would consider aquatic
Hmm.
or even semi-aquatic. Um, there was a handful of studies that came out a couple of years ago. So anoles are a different group of lizards. We have them. So you see them at PetSmart, the American green anole with the throat flaps.
Yeah.
You see them in PetSmart. They're native to Mississippi. They're native to kind of the southeastern U.S. But there's lots of other species in the Caribbean. They're all over Central and South America. They're another group of lizards that have similar adhesive toe pads
Ooh.
as geckos, but they're not geckos.
Mm.
Um, a couple of years ago, there was a handful of studies that came out looking at aquatic anoles. So there are some anole species in Central America and I think the Caribbean that live on the rocks near streams and will jump into the water to catch little fish. And they can actually breathe underwater, not because they have gills, but because their skin repels water. And so when they jump in the water, they have the kind of this little air bubble of air around their skin because their skin, think of like something that when it repels water and you put it in water, you get like a little bubble around it. Their whole body's like that. And so they can actually exhale and it makes a little bubble on their face. And then they can re-inhale that bubble and exhale the bubble and re-inhale the bubble and exhale the bubble. So they don't have gills, but they can breathe underwater.
Oh, I love that.
By using, there's some really cool video of it online, really cool pictures. Because they dive in the water and they almost look shiny because there's that really thin air layer around them.
Oh, okay. Um,
So there are aquatic anoles, but
oh,
there are no aquatic. I mean,
yeah,
these geckos spend their time jumping. These anoles spend their time jumping in and out of water,
that makes sense.
of
Yeah.
little like streams. But I can't think of any geckos that do anything like that.
Okay.
And then you've got marine iguanas that are fully, really aquatic. Um, and you've got things like the basilisks that can run across water,
Hmm.
which is a different type of lizard. But I really can't think of any geckos that would want to go anywhere near water.
No.
Um, and actually, water inhibits how their toe pads work. If you ever see geckos on like the wall, you can get a little squirt bottle, and if you can spray enough water under their feet won't work and they'll fall off.
Oh,
Hmm.
that makes
Um,
sense when like we're misting in the enclosures. You can see them kind of run away from the water. Like no,
right, and if you spray them, they start to like slide
slide
down
a
the
little
wall.
bit. Yep,
Yep. So no, they're probably not really interested in water.
makes sense. Um, what surprised you the most to learn about either reptiles or geckos?
Yeah, so one kind of cool factoid I like to talk about is, and I can never remember, so we have, going back to their eyes, we have rods and cones in our eyes.
Hmm.
And I can never remember, one of them helps us see color, one of them helps us see in low light environments. But it can't see color. And I forget if it's rods or cones, which one's which. Um, but that's why at night, like everything looks kind of black and white. You can't see color as well because you're using more of one of those structures than the other.
Makes sense.
You know what I mean? Um, and so you know how like cats, if you see cats at night, their eyes glow, or I think deer might also have that reflectance in their eye, right?
Yeah.
Because the back of their eyeball helps reflect light and to bounce more light in their eye so they can see better at night. Geckos have that too. So for a lot of the nocturnal geckos, if you're out at night looking for them, if you have your headlamp kind of down between your eyes, you can see their eyes glimmer the same way a cat's eyes do at night. And so
Oh.
we've actually gone eye shining for geckos at night when we're doing field work. The wrinkle to that is spiders, because it's a really small little glimmer you're seeing on a tree trunk or on the side of a building. Spiders' eyes also do that though.
I learned that recently, and yeah.
So we were doing field work in Australia, in Queensland, and we're walking through the forest and you'd see a little glimmer on a tree trunk and you'd run over there hoping it was a gecko, and it would be a big Australian spider. Like 4 times out of 5, it was a giant freaking spider.
Yeah.
So so that's really cool. And also, so those rods and cones, geckos only have rods, I think. I never remember which is which. It's the same structure that helps us see color during the day. But they don't have the low light ones, the low light structures. Geckos don't have that. But lots of geckos are nocturnal, so they've actually modified how those work so they can see in color in low light,
Ooh.
which is something we can't do, which is
No.
super cool.
Um,
Um,
Sorry, speaking of colors and things,
mhm.
do they see the same amount of colors as we do? Or
They probably see more.
I was going to say, are
So
they like
we
the
have
mantis shrimp?
no, they're not as bad. They're not as crazy as the mantis shrimp. So we can see three different. We have three different rods. We can kind of see three different colors, and then depending on how much of each of those colors we're seeing, we blend all that together to see the whole rainbow, right? Lots of reptiles, lots of lizards, and birds usually have a fourth, so they can see ultraviolet. So they can see violet beyond what we can see.
Okay. And that's
Um,
I've seen pictures of I think it's sorry crows where they're actually
uh,
quite more colorful than we can see because of those different colors.
yep, exactly. They probably have patterning beyond purple,
Yeah.
beyond violet that we can't see, but they can see. Yep, exactly. And so geckos can probably see in ultraviolet, so they probably can see colors we can't.
I,
And they probably have colors on them that we can't see.
oh, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Okay.
And they can probably see them at night, which is even crazier
That
in
is.
low light conditions.
I'd
So
love to be
that's
able to see
kind of a
colors at
cool factoid.
night.
Yeah, right. And so that's kind of a cool uh, factoid. But one of the projects that I've been working on for the last few years, last couple of years, and we're starting to kind of get some results is a not all so geckos are kind of known for having toe pads, but not all geckos have toe pads. Like your leopard geckos don't have toe pads. Um, so there's lots of different groups of geckos that maybe never had toe pads. Their ancestors never had toe pads. There's some groups of geckos that recently evolved toe pads. There's some groups of geckos where their ancestors did have them and now they don't. So toe pads have kind of come and gone multiple times within the whole group of geckos. And they've come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. Everyone kind of thinks of the stereotypical tokay toe pad or like a crested toe pad. It's a big, flat, round toe pad, right?
Yeah.
Um, but some geckos only have a pair of pads up at the tip by their claw, or some geckos have pairs, sets of pairs, like a house gecko does. Um, some geckos have really crazy kind of fan-shaped toes. Um, some geckos have think of like a tokay or a crested gecko, but a division down the middle. There's a ton of variation in how all their toe pads are shaped. The crazy thing is, though, that we see examples of really distantly related geckos that have almost the same shaped toe pad, even though they're not closely related to each other. And so then we can start to ask why or how did these two distantly related species evolve almost the same shaped pad? And is it really shaped the same, or do we just think it's shaped the same? Can we measure that? And so starting in graduate school, I started just taking pictures of gecko toe pads. And so there's 2,000 roughly 2,000 species of geckos out there,
Ooh.
and I have toe pad pictures for 500 or so. So I have, and there's 100 genera, and I have toe pad pictures for like 90, 95 genera. So as far as the genuses go, I've got almost all of them, and I've got probably the world's best collection of toe pad pictures
I love
across
it.
all geckos. Um, Kind of to start thinking about how do we answer these questions. So a couple 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I had a student who started measuring some of those toe pad pictures, just outlining the shape. And so we did that for, I think it was 90 species, like 250 pictures. She worked on outlining all those toe pads, and then we were able to compare. Um, how did we do this? Is these groups that we think are shaped the same, are they actually more similar? So we could kind of mathematically compare the shape. And so we were able to ask, did these distantly related species really evolve the same shape? And so yes, what looks similar is mathematically similar. And on top of that, we have their family tree. So then we were able to back calculate, okay, if this is how their toe pads are shaped, what did their ancestors look like? And again, this is kind of an approximation. So then we can go backwards in time and ask, what did each ancestor look like? And then ask, how fast was that changing? So have toe pads started evolving faster or slower through time, or has it been staying the same rate? And so our analysis suggested that evolution has been slowing down over time. The toe pads have started out changing really quickly and then slowly slowing down, which
Interesting.
makes sense if gecko toe pads were kind of a new invention 200 million years ago. there's all these different ways you could use it, and nobody else is using them. Any change you make is going to work, and so it's kind of a race to figure out all the different ways you could use them. And then once everyone's using them, it gets harder to find a new way to do it. So the evolution would kind of slow down because there's less opportunities for a new niche.
Yeah. And they also, some have the adhesion pads on the tip of their tails too, don't
Yes. I have a student actually working on that now.
Oh.
Yeah.
they?
So I haven't been taking tail pad pictures.
No.
But we've started taking pictures of cresteds. Do your lychee or your other Rhachydactylus have tail pads?
I think the lychee does. Hold on. Here you go, pumpkin.
And I don't know. And I don't know if they're
the lychee,
regrown
you can
ones.
feel it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the other one, she has a regrown tail, so she doesn't on that, but she only
Okay,
has the
and I
little
don't.
tip.
That's the thing, is I don't know if the regrown. I'm sure the regrown ones are different. I just don't know how different or what that means.
Yeah, because I know they always grow back differently, especially for leopard geckos. They don't look quite the same, and I've seen them come back shorter or more heart
And stubbier,
shaped.
kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, this little girl here, she definitely has adhesion on her tail.
That's the lychee.
The lychee, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find some live lychee somewhere down here and take pictures of their. I have one picture of a preserved lychee on its foot, and I need some live pictures because their feet are so much better when they're alive.
Yeah.
And so all of the Rhachydactylus, my understanding is all of the Rhachydactylus have tail pads. A lot of the there's some African geckos that have tail pads. It's evolved 3 or 4 or 5 different times within geckos. So I actually have a student working on that project now to ask, okay, because theoretically, genetically, it might not be that difficult to take all the genes for a toe pad. All you got to do is turn those genes on in a different part of your body and reuse the genetics you already have in a new spot. It might not be that difficult from a kind of a theoretical genetics perspective. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, we have all these different toe pad shapes. If you're just reusing the same genetics, do your toe pads look like your tail pads? Ooh. Or do your tail pads always look like your toe pads? So we're doing the same thing. We're trying to collect tail pad pictures now and compare them to the owner's toe pads to ask, do your tail pads always look like your toe pads?
Oh, okay. I'm very excited for that then.
So check back in like a year when that project's done. But I have a lot of crested gecko tail pads because they're really easy to get.
Yes.
The other thing that we found was digging through all the paper that not a lot of people have studied tail pads, and digging back through the published studies that have been done, we were able to track down a paper from the 1950s that said day geckos, Phelsuma day geckos, have adhesive tail pads. And we're like, I've worked with a lot of Phelsuma and I don't think they do. So now we're going to take a bunch of Phelsuma tail pads, because they don't have a prehensile tail. They don't grab stuff with their tail. Doesn't seem like they have tail pads. So somebody said they did in the 50s. I don't know if that's true.
Interesting.
So we're gonna measure that too, just to see if we can find any evidence of that, because I've never noticed that.
No. Yeah, they definitely, the day gecko, the standing day gecko we have, I was looking at its tail just the other day because I was like, it looks so different from all the other geckos that we have, because we don't have any other type of day gecko. All of ours are
right, and theirs are kind of just a kind of a cone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Someone actually asked on the chat here what metabolism is like, and I know we feed our crested gecko grown-ups every 2-3 days, so they're probably faster than a snake's, but not like a human.
Yes, exactly. I think that makes sense. I think snakes are kind of the extreme.
Yeah. With
a super low metabolism until it's not, and then it's really fast to break down a whole rat, and then it's really low. But generally, so you've got endotherms and ectotherms.
Yes.
So endotherms, organisms that generate their own body heat from the energy from their food, mainly birds and mammals. Most of the food we eat goes to just keeping our body warm. Like most of the calories we take in is just keeping the machine running. Um, and reptiles and fish and insects don't need that much food because they're not using it, most of it, to just keep themselves warm.
Mm.
Even though, and so that's why I'm using endotherm, endo meaning from the inside, ectotherm meaning from the outside, because you can have like the whiptails and monitor lizards, they maintain really high body temperatures. Their body is, 80 or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Their bodies are warm. They're just not making that heat.
Mm.
They're collecting it from their environment, or they're getting that heat from their muscles, something like that, right? Um, and so just because they're cold-blooded doesn't mean they're cold.
No.
They could be really warm. Tuna fish, like, are pretty warm-blooded, but that's just because they're pure muscle and they swim constantly.
That makes sense. I saw a paper shared to a science group saying that tegus were partially warm-blooded. I think it was 2021-ish.
Yeah, and again, it
And
depends on what your definition of warm-blooded.
yeah,
Like, does that just mean they maintain a high body temperature,
it
or
could, yeah.
yeah,
I'll
like
have
I
to-
know some whiptails have to check. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll have to reread the paper because I remember just seeing it come up and quickly scanned it, but I'll have to try and find that again.
right. Yeah, and so that actually bleeds. That actually affects a lot of different things, right? And so, if they're not using all their energy for maintaining their body temperature, they don't need as much food.
Hmm.
They can eat every few days, and I feed my crested geckos once every couple days, and the leopard gecko gets a dozen crickets once a week,
Yep.
and she eats them whenever she eats them, or they die in the cage, one or the other. But the other piece to that is they actually don't need as much oxygen either.
Oh.
They're not breathing as fast because again, your oxygen is being consumed for generating ATP in your cells. They don't burn through as much oxygen as we do either.
I never thought of that before.
Yeah, exactly. So when we do field work, a lot of times we'll catch a lizard, and those big Ziploc freezer bags, those gallon freezer bags.
Yeah.
We'll put a lizard in there, fill it with air, close it, and it'll just be a big kind of puffy pillow of air in an airtight Ziploc bag. They're good in there for hours or days. They're not going to run out of oxygen. They don't use that much oxygen.
I actually have a lot of people ask us when we bring animals to schools and stuff. We put air holes obviously in the boxes and things,
Yeah, exactly.
and they get very concerned, like, "Oh my gosh, can they breathe in there?" I'm like, "They're fine, don't worry. There's air
Yep.
holes." But that actually makes a lot
You
of sense.
could probably put them in an airtight. I mean, don't put
Don't put them in
I'm
there.
trying to think of a Leachianus in a sandwich bag.
No.
No, that's probably not going to be great. But yeah.
That's
So like they
good to
don't
know.
go through that much oxygen, not as fast as you think a mammal does.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other part of that too is the food they do take in, they can actually put that towards building body mass more efficiently. And so one thing that we talk a lot about in ecology is, so if you think about food webs, right? You've got all the grass or all those primary producers, whatever's using the sun's energy to produce biomass, right? Somebody eats the plants, somebody else eats the next thing, somebody else eats the next thing, and that energy from the plants to that first consumer to the secondary consumer, the energy gets passed up the chain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if somewhere in the middle there, if you've got a small mammal like a mouse or a rat, think of how much energy that mouse or rat has to bring in, how much that energy just gets wasted as heat. And then the owl that comes along and eats that mouse, how much energy does that mouse pass up the chain versus just waste out the sides as heat? Versus if that bird ate a frog, the frog could be the same weight as the mouse,
Oh.
but to grow that frog didn't require as much energy from the step below it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It also kind of reminds me of the like the mercury is more concentrated and
Yes.
higher up the food chain kind of thing for fish.
Exactly.
And that's why we don't eat sharks.
And yes, or any long-lived old animal.
yeah.
But and so when you've got things like amphibians and reptiles as part of your food web, they can actually support more top-tier predators because they're better at passing more energy up the chain.
Okay.
Because mammals take in all this energy and then burn it all off as heat. So then when somebody else comes along and eats that mammal, the amount of energy that mammal was taking in to stay alive doesn't get passed up to its predator.
Mm-hmm.
Versus a frog or a lizard, most of the food it takes in gets converted into more of its own body, which then is available for its predator to go eat.
That makes sense.
So they're
Okay.
actually like a really important part of the food web because they're more efficient at supporting more predators.
Interesting. Okay.
So having that low metabolism is like a big part of how ecology works, you know?
Yeah. I, that's also like, and higher up the food chain, would it mean that higher up on the food chain predators would need to eat more in general,
Well, or so
or bigger prey?
well, yes. So think about if you had 1 acre of grass,
Mm-hmm.
right? How and that 1 acre of grass supported a bunch of frog. I know frogs don't eat grass, but we're going to make this a really
It
simple
works.
food
It
web.
works.
Let's say you have an acre of grass. Think of how many frogs that grass could keep alive, and then how many birds could eat those frogs, right? That energy gets passed up pretty easily. But if we changed frogs for mice, those mice are going to require a lot more food and be able to support a lot fewer top
Yeah.
predators because they're just wasting all the grass energy.
Yeah.
All the energy they take in from the grass, they're just burning off as heat, and so then there's not as like there's way fewer birds or top predator. So you can just have a more complicated, larger food web because energy gets passed up through it more efficiently with ectotherms instead of endotherms.
Okay. Um,
So you'd be able to support more birds on frogs than on mice, even though the grass plot's the same size.
Makes sense. Okay.
Hmm.
And then, sorry, I have a question here.
Yeah.
Uh, we have a lot of kids that we talk to, and I have so many of them come up and say they want to be a scientist when they grow up. They want to work with animals when they grow up. Do you have any advice for any kids that want to get into working with animals?
Yeah. So there's yeah. Obviously depends on what age the kid is,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But I would say if you're old enough to start volunteering at vet clinics, um, you could try volunteering at a zoo. They probably get that question a lot. They might not really be very interested. But I'm sure a vet would be really excited to have you come in and clean cages. That's maybe not the most fun job, but walking dogs at vets, spending time with cats, like trying to get animals acclimatized to people at humane society, stuff like that. If you just want some time with animals, um, I would say that kind of volunteer work is super important. Um, if you're more, and another thing I did as an undergrad in Bellingham, and I don't know if it's still around, but there is a wildlife rehabilitation center in outside of Bellingham. So when I was an undergrad, I spent a summer working for free at the wildlife rehab center,
Okay.
which means I got to hand feed baby. So this was when, if anybody said like, oh, my cat got into a nest of rabbits, what do I do with them here? And so we had lots of squirrels, chipmunks, raccoons, possums,
Oh.
all the small songbirds and robins. I got to hand raise baby squirrels and feed baby possums and raccoons and baby skunks and hand anything, like any big stuff we sent off to a bigger facility. So like deer, we passed them on to a more capable center. All the birds of prey we passed along. But anything like smaller than a crow, we got to hand raise all the baby birds, all
Oh.
the small mammals, anything, raccoon or squirrel or skunk sized, um, or yeah, possums. Like it was really cool to get to hand raise all those animals. Yes, I was cleaning cages a lot, but
That's
I
life with
also got to
animals.
right. And as an undergrad volunteer, that
Yeah.
was my job. But once I was there for a little while and they trusted me, I got to help make the food. I got to help feed the animals. And you get to learn stuff like they would use, because a lot of these baby animals were still on formula, like
Mm.
still needed milk. And so we had different formula concentrations for different kinds of animals. So they were using dog puppy formula based on its fat content for skunks, or this fat content was for this type of animal. So it was really interesting. You can't just go get 2% milk from the
No.
store and think you can feed that to a baby animal. We needed different kinds of formula for different kinds of animals. So it was really cool.
I we have a couple of rescues. We have an owl here, an owl rescue, or raptor rescue, I should say. And then I have been to a wolf sanctuary in, I think it was in Oregon.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely fascinating to be there. And they had the gray wolves, but they also had red wolves and things. Absolutely amazing to be around. But yeah, volunteering, and we might have some volunteer opportunities coming up.
There you go. Yeah.
We do
Oh,
get volunteers for some of our shows, so that's always an
there
option.
you go. Yes, exactly. Have you gotten questions about, speaking of the wolves, have you gotten questions about the dire wolf?
No, no, that is that's something I'll let other people handle because I keep reading all this stuff, and I love watching Hank Green's channel and everything like that, and he's like,
They're perfect. Okay.
please
So
read
then
all
you're
this.
you're informed enough to know
Not
it's a
actual diary.
it's a slightly modified timber wolf.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Because I think I forget what class I might have been teaching zoology when that came out, and I'm like, we're
Oh,
gonna have a discussion now
yeah.
about what this is and what it isn't, and what we think it is and what they're calling it, and
It's
we can talk about that. Yeah.
yeah, it's a catchy headline, and
Yes, totally.
it got people into evolution and biology to look into that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, which is
Yep.
great, but but a little
Yeah.
misleading.
I know folks in Australia, and so they're talking about Tasmanian wolves or
Oh
the thylacine,
yeah,
and
thylacine's
Mauritius is where the dodo bird was.
yeah.
Um, and so that's always a fun conversation. Again, I have with my students is, and again, everything goes back to Jurassic Park, but kind of the famous quote of scientists were so preoccupied with if they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's imagine we do we remake woolly mammoths.
Hmm.
Okay, here's a woolly mammoth. What are you gonna do with it?
What does will it fill a niche somewhere? Like will it?
What are you gonna let them go in northern Canada? Is the Yukon gonna take woolly mammoths? Is Siberia gonna take woolly mammoth?
Yeah, no.
Who's gonna be? What you think Africa has poaching problems? Go release 4 woolly mammoths in northern Canada and see what happens.
Yeah.
You're never ever going to be able to release them, and if you do, you're going to have a bunch of people with machine guns around them,
Yep.
because think of the black market. If you could have one lock of real mammoth fur,
Oh gosh.
what you could sell that for, let alone bones or spleen or ivory or any body part, would be worth a bajillion dollars.
And
So you
it's
would never be able to release them.
and it sucks to think about that, but I mean, look what happened to that anaconda that they found in Colombia. They found like the
Um,
largest anaconda, and they shared where they found it, and it got poached.
yeah,
So,
exactly. So my talking about this with my students, we've come up with a plan. We have a solution. Is you head that off at the pass. If you're the person engineering the mammoth, you just sell. You make mammoth leather everything, and you sell it on your
just
website. You monetize the crud out of it,
get rid of the middleman.
right? And so if you offer mammoth wool hats and mammoth ivory everything, then there's no market. Why steal it if
you,
you can just buy it already?
you
Why
oversaturate the
poach it?
market. It's perfect.
Oversaturate the market, sell mammoth steaks and mammoth hamburger and all of that mammoth sausage, make all of that so available, right? Breed them and send them to every zoo. And so that would be the only solution, we think, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
is you saturate the market so there's no need to poach them. Maybe you'd be able to get them to live in the wild. I still don't know if there's a niche for them ecologically
No.
anymore, but yeah. So then when he gets to stuff like dodo or thylacine,
I
that's even harder, I
like
think.
as much as I really want to see a thylacine. I don't know. I absolutely
Well,
love marsupials and just the thought of the thylacine. And I it's okay. I can live with the Tasmanian devil. That's fine.
well, it would be really cool.
It would
Um,
be
and
amazing, but
and the mammoth, we have the Asian elephant, so that's its kind of its closest relative. We could at least have a base to work from.
yeah,
Um, Dodos, I think, are more closely related to pigeons, kind of a
that would make sense.
Indian pigeon, but they're egg laying, and so they don't have to. Might be able to modify and get an egg going. Thylacine, I think its closest relative is like a really small kind of a rodent like marsupial.
Mm.
So I don't know how you're going to surrogate, like who's going to, but again, marsupial reproduction is really weird. They're born really tiny.
Hmm.
So you might be able to get like a Tasmanian devil to take care of the little, really tiny Joey,
Tasmanian devils, though, aren't very good moms. I mean, they have
or a
something.
kangaroo or something. Like you might be able to transplant that really
Yeah,
tiny embryo into somebody else.
yeah.
But
Tasmanian devils, to my knowledge, they have 40 babies at once, but only have 4 nipples, so they eat the babies like jelly beans that don't make it.
yeah,
Um,
probably. Yeah, that's
I think that's what I was
lots
told.
of nature. I think sharks do that in the womb
Hmm.
too.
Depending
Um,
if they lay eggs or live bear, right?
well, I think the live bearing sharks, some
In
of the
the
babies eat the other babies before they're hatched.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what
Sorry,
other?
I love sharks.
Yeah, no, no, that's okay. Oh,
Um,
okay, so other advice. So if you're
yeah.
college age and you're interested in this stuff, I think then starting to think about biology degrees, looking at colleges that have wildlife programs. So, like University of Idaho had a whole college of natural resources, so land management, water management,
Mhm.
wildlife management, um, those kinds of degrees. If you want to think about game animals or endangered species, kind of that kind of stuff, which in essence a lot of times boils down to applied genetics. They're doing, can we monitor this population of salmon or trout or elk or North American pronghorn or whatever.
Mm.
You know, should how are we breeding these things? Should we be breeding them? So thinking about college degrees, wildlife management, vet degrees, biology degrees, zoology degrees.
I do want to say, just for the people watching, it is different in Canada versus the States, college versus university. I know that the University of UFV, which is like right beside me here, University of Fraser Valley, they offer Bachelor of the Arts, but you can still go into ecology, because if you're like me and bad at math, you can still do it.
Yeah, and I'm using college and university
Yeah,
interchangeably, so
very
I'm
fair.
sure it probably is a little different. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's just to, so the kids know that it is different from the States to Canada
yeah.
when it comes
Hmm.
to school. But yeah.
Right. And that's the other thing is every institution, college or university,
Mm-hmm.
if it's anything like in the US, is going to have a different name.
100%.
So like one of them, so Mississippi State University, I think is wildlife, fisheries, and agriculture or something.
Mm-hmm.
But University of Idaho was College of Natural Resources.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of decode each school's name for what it's talking about. But it's going to be something like wildlife, land management, natural resources. It's going to have buzzwords like that.
Yeah. And then when it comes down to like maybe high school students who are thinking about what they're going to be doing, I always say just take those biology courses and those math courses, and yeah, volunteer.
I know students a lot of times are really interested in marine biology,
Yes, especially around
uh,
here.
especially around there, right? And
Yeah.
especially if you want to study whales, right? People really are excited about whales. And the hard part, the kind of, I hate to like burst students' bubbles sometimes, but if you're a scientist and you're trying to do experiments, how many whales can you really catch a year?
Mm.
How many samples are you going to be really able to take? Four, five, six? If your experiment requires whales to wash up on the beach, where you need more than just a tissue sample or an observation, you're getting like one or two a year,
Yeah.
and you're not always happy, right? We're not excited for
Well,
whales to wash up.
yeah.
And obviously, we want to take advantage of that and get as much information from them as we can. But to plan a whole experiment where you can only get one or two measurements a year,
It's gonna take
that's
a long
really
time.
that's really tough. That's not a great thing to go study.
Hmm.
It just makes it really difficult. It's not that it's not important. It's just really hard.
Yeah.
And if you could, that's where I think science has a lot of creativity that we don't always think about it like that. But if you could design the same experiment, if you wanted to study, genetics of deep sea diving, and you're like, I have to do this in whales. Well, could you do this in mice, or could you do this in otters, or could you do this in? If you could do it in mice, and you want to study the same gene, you could have 100 mice within 3 months.
Yeah, very, very
Do the same
easily.
study very easily. Um, so sometimes you can still answer the question you want, but rephrase it or spin it in a different way
Okay.
that makes it a little more tractable.
Okay. And then I have so many kids that say they want to work with animals, but they don't want to be a vet. And I think a lot of people
Sure.
immediately think, I want to work with animals, and immediately think veterinary care. And it's hard.
No, and I think the students saying that I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me think how to say
I
that.
should say the adults
I
immediately think veterinary school and stuff like that,
Sure,
but the kids
yes.
want to do something else.
Right. Well, and I mean that thought crossed my mind for a quick second, but I know I have some friends that are vets,
Hmm.
and like your neighborhood vet is mostly doing spays and neuters all day long,
Yep.
and telling people their sick, lovely, very, very loved family pet is sick and not going to make it.
It's heart heavy.
That's Yeah, that's your day. You're going to go do a couple spays, a couple neuters, and euthanize some sick dogs, and
Yeah.
that's really sad.
It's
That's
so
your whole
sad.
day, right? That's every day is that. So that's probably not as fun as it sounds. Um, yeah, and so yeah, I think that's the when people think of working with animals, that's obviously the first thing they think of. But and I think for the people that are vets, that's like you said, that's a heart heavy. You're excited when you can give good news,
Hmm.
but I think that's a hard job. Um, and so yeah, I think there's lots of other. But the other thing is, I want to, somebody wants to work at a zoo, and I'm like, you don't make, not that you make money, that much money as a college professor, but you also don't make much money at a zoo either,
Yeah,
because
100%.
everybody wants to be a zookeeper.
Yeah. We have
Um,
a local zoo near us, and I know how much they make. And they have to have
right,
degrees to be there and everything. And
sure,
oh, man.
but there's also,
Dream job.
I'm sure there's biologists working for
Yeah.
if the BC government is anything like the Washington state government, I can guarantee there's biologists working on whether we should be clear cutting this area or not, or looking at the cedar trees, or looking at the salmon runs, or looking at the elk populations, or the
Habitat.
blacktail or the mule deer populations, and managing those, reintroducing wolves. And that's all government
100%.
conservation. In the U.S., it's Bureau of Land Management. I'm not sure what it would be in BC. Um,
I'd have to
but
look it
that,
up.
but those are all people with at least bachelor's, if not master's or
Hmm.
PhD in biology, making informed decisions about where we should be investing money, which part of which forest needs to be replanted, which species do we need to introduce, how do we get rid of invasive species. Did you guys get the big scare about the Asian bees, the Asian wasps?
Yes, we didn't get it as bad as Washington did, but there were a few accounts of them being near the border. Yeah, that was something that was talked about. The stink bugs were the worst, actually.
Oh, right.
We had
Yeah.
a lot
So
of stink bugs.
I'm sure there were a lot of government employed biologists
Hmm.
talking about that and making plans for that. And
Yeah. There's-
think of all the birds of prey and owls and horned owls and barn owls and all the different. You guys have the rough-skinned newts up there? I don't think you do.
I
Or
I'd,
not on the
I'd have to
beach.
I'd have to look in my book, but I think so.
I think you do. Yeah, I think you do on the coast, right?
Because I know we have
Yeah.
the fire tail, but I'd have to check the book. But I've heard of rough skin, so I think that's been
Yeah.
seen on the island.
Right. Well, I know Western Washington has them, and we actually had a couple weird populations in Idaho,
Oh,
which were really like weird and
yeah,
disconnected.
that's weird.
But they go all the way. They're the ones that are super toxic, and they go all the way from California up to Alaska, I think.
Oh, wow.
And garter snakes are the only things that can eat them.
Oh, that makes sense. With yeah, garter snakes.
Yep. But garter snakes are really resistant. It's a tetrodotoxin. It's the same toxin that's in pufferfish.
Oh,
So it's a really gnarly nerve toxin
yeah.
that these little brown salamanders have, and garter snakes have a resistance to them.
I love garter snakes. Unfortunately they're not allowed to be pets here in BC, for good reason. Shouldn't be taking them out of the wild, but
Sure.
I absolutely love them, and I hope that one day I can get to the snake pits in Manitoba, and I want to just lie there on the ground when they're emerging. I'm not
Nice.
gonna lie. My dream
Oh.
is a lot of people's nightmare, but that's fine.
Right. Right. Uh, but yeah, so the government has to employ biologists
Yeah.
as long as we continue to have the as
Yeah.
long as we continue to fund an EPA in the U.S. We need, yep, we need biologists for the government. And then I'm trying to think of other, like, right, like, and then research biologists,
Hmm.
whether that's through a university or through nonprofits or like non-government agencies. Lots of zoos have genetics. Lots of zoos are doing endangered species breeding programs and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, ours is doing red pandas and things like that.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I know there's a couple of programs with UBC that work with the Vancouver Aquarium here. Some really awesome stuff. But it's the same as like there's always going to be a government version of the job, especially like I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was little. And they're like, well, you can get a job with the government with being an archaeologist because around here you have to look into things before you dig, right? So,
And I'm sure there's lots of indigenous
100%.
um, artifacts that are found probably all the time.
All the time. Yeah, my even my sister's old house, like they couldn't build on part of the land just because until someone came and surveyed the land because of where it was. So yeah, there's always going to be government jobs somewhere along the line.
Yep, yep. And even I know, again, I'm not sure how BC runs things, but in the western US, in places like Nevada, Utah, Oregon, Eastern Oregon, where we have open cattle land, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's government owned property, but people will run their cattle on it. Or even if it's private land and you're running cattle on, you're pretty much just open all that land up and let your cattle graze there so that you're not paying to feed your cattle, right?
Mm.
Um, there's rules and regulations about how many cattle you're allowed to have on how much land. I don't know if it's the government or the landowners that have to do all this math, but you have to calculate how much feed is growing on this amount of land. You can only have enough cows that won't negatively impact the animals that are already supposed to be there. So the deer, the elk, the bison, the pronghorn. So you have to make sure the land is growing enough food for the local hooved animals, the deer, the elk, the pronghorn, the moose, and then whatever's left over, that controls how many cows you can put on that land. So that's the thing the government regulates is how many cows you can have on your land, given how much energy that land is growing and how many deer is it that going to be able to support. Um, and so, yeah, I'm sure there's biologists behind that math
Yeah,
somewhere.
that makes sense. Um, I'm so sorry. I realized I just saw the time. I'm so sorry.
That's
Um,
okay.
I do want to ask a very important question here. What is your favorite part of the job, and what is your least favorite part of the job?
Mm, I think the fun part, the most exciting part is uh, getting to come up with my own ideas. So the perk, think about career paths, the perk of going and being a college professor is like, as far as research goes, you get to do whatever you want. So nobody's telling me I have to study geckos. No, I could wake up tomorrow and totally switch everything to beetles if I wanted to.
There's a lot of beetles.
Nobody's right, but like nobody's telling me what to do. As long as I can fund it, I can do whatever I want, right? And if I what I want to do doesn't require any funding, even better. Um, and so that's kind of the most exciting part is coming up with ideas, writing the grants, eventually getting the grant funded, getting to do the idea that you had, and then actually getting to learn that new thing. So this is also a fun conversation to have with my undergrad students that are kind of first getting their first experience doing research. Is in class we talk about a lot about like where does knowledge come from? What do you know? Do you know what you don't know? Where does new information come from? Those kinds of questions, right? Do you know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so the fun part about kind of being a scientist is when at the end of your experiment, when you actually get an answer, if it's an experiment nobody's ever done before, which you should be doing an experiment that no one's done before, right? You shouldn't be necessarily, sometimes it's important to repeat an experiment, but usually you're not trying to repeat an experiment, you're trying to learn something new. When that experiment's done and you get an answer, for a moment, you're the only person in the world that knows that answer to that
Yeah.
question. You just got to learn something new that nobody else knows until you tell somebody else that you just literally learned something that no one has ever known before. So that's like new knowledge. You just generated something new.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and so
so
that's super
exciting.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be the first one to learn a thing.
I love that. Um,
Yeah. And so that's always kind of fun for students, like when their experiment goes well, and I'm like, you and I are the only two people that know the answer to that question right now in the history of the world.
so I could just imagine the excitement, like
Yeah.
the feeling that would give you. Oh man.
Yeah. So it's super exciting.
And
And
then
so, yeah.
I don't know if you have a least favorite part of the job or not.
Well,
A lot of people
yeah.
say emails.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking emails. Um, the other part of that freedom is you have to have kind of a thick skin.
Mm.
And so you think you have this super awesome idea and you pour your heart and blood and soul into a grant and you send it off and it comes back and whoever reviewed your grant didn't think it was a good idea.
Oh,
You're like, okay, well, so now I got to try again.
rework it.
Or so you rework it. You have to be okay because part of the whole system is other scientists' job to critique every other scientist's work. That's part of how the system works. I review other scientists' grants too,
Mm-hmm.
and I review other scientists' publications. And when you're the reviewer, it's your job to make sure that's as good as it can be, and to pick it apart and point out all the possible flaws, and to make it stronger. That's the goal. When you're on the receiving end, it's not fun, but all of us have to take a turn being on the receiving end because it makes our work better.
Yeah.
But it's not fun to work on something really hard and then be told, well, it's not good enough, or you did it wrong, or you kind of have to develop a thicker skin, and you're either going to argue, well, I think I did do it right, or, well, are they right? Did I not do this the right way? Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
kind of have those conversations.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And usually you're better off. The project ends up stronger, but it's not a fun experience
No,
always.
it's like rejection. I get that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. You have to be confident that you actually do know what you're doing, and but also take constructive criticism.
Mm.
You have to be really comfortable taking a lot of constructive criticism and assume that they're doing it to try to make it better, and they're not doing it just to be mean. Because people are people, and some people are mean, and don't have tact or whatever, right? Like,
Very true. Very true.
so you give everybody else the benefit of the doubt and assume they're trying to help.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to develop thick skin, just to kind of survive getting it through, whether that's a grant or a publication or any of those things, job applications, all that stuff. You kind of thrive. Everything runs on rejection.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question that just popped into my head while we were talking though. Do you have a favorite fields in the field moment that ever happened?
Oh, trying to think of ones that are appropriate. Do I have a favorite? Let me think. So I have one. So this was okay. I can think of a couple. So these weren't my stories. These are my advisors, my PhD advisor stories. Between his bachelor's and after his bachelor's, before he went to graduate school, he did Peace Corps in the Solomon Islands. So he spent a couple of years in the Solomon Islands teaching, I think it was like math to high school kids.
Okay.
As part of that piece, because again, the Solomon Islands isn't a very well-developed country as far as hygiene and like clean water and all those kinds of things are hit or miss. And so with this group of Peace Corps volunteers, it was kind of only a matter of time until you pooped your pants. That was just kind of the way it was.
Yep, that makes sense.
And so within their little group, they had what they called the Brown Coat Society. Was when you pooped your pants, you became part of the Brown Coat Society. So he had all these stories. He's like, yeah, that was the first time I pooped my pants. He's like, and then one time I was on a boat, and like,
oh no.
he had all these stories. And I'm like, that sounds like I mean, I love doing field work, but that sounds horrible.
Oh man. Okay. Good
Yep.
to know.
So those things, like, So I think that's like one of the most fun parts of field work is it's like it's super intense. And so it's kind of it's very much a crucible and very much a trial by fire. Um, so for when I did field work in Mauritius, this is kind of an extreme example, but to do the field work in Mauritius took 3 years of negotiation with the federal government there
Mm.
to get my permits approved.
Yeah.
So this is 3 years worth of work, tens of thousands of dollars worth of grant money, and the time it took me to write those grants. There's usually years of work going into setting up these trips.
Mm-hmm.
And these trips might be 2 weeks long or 3 weeks long. And so you can almost do the math of how many hours of work each hour it costs
Oof.
you to be there in the country doing the work. And so you're trying to work as hard as you can, as fast as you can. And so it's kind of a intense, high pressure. We have 3 weeks and we have to catch 50 lizards and we got to go, right? And so usually that it's kind of high pressure, builds a lot of camaraderie, and austere conditions, right? You might not be drinking the cleanest water. You're probably eating a lot of gas station food. You're jet lagged. And so you're covered in mosquito bites or bug bites and you're sunburnt and you're dehydrated and it's go. So I think that's super fun. But there are definitely times when you crack a little bit. And I think everybody has a different tolerance level
Yeah.
but it's part of the experience. So an example of that, like meeting the upper end of what you can tolerate. In graduate school, I did field work in the Dominican Republic in the Caribbean. And so I'm 6'3", so I'm a pretty tall, lean guy, right? And so the truck that we rented, so I was a really early grad student. I was down there helping another grad student and a professor, and we brought a couple other grad students from other universities. So there was 4 or 5 of us there. And so we rented this kind of little truck in the Dominican Republic, which has the really small back seats where the back seats you face each other with like your knees touching. So the back seats aren't facing forward, they're facing sideways,
Yeah.
And so the grad student that organized the trip, this was for his project. He was driving the rental truck. The other kind of grad student and I, the two that got tagged on to the trip to come help, we were both sitting stuck in the back seat. And he was also a tall guy.
Oh no.
So we're both like hunched in the back seat of the truck. Both of our knees are touching. The driver's seat, he is here. The back window's here. We're driving up and down. This trip was for 3 weeks. We're in the Dominican Republic, driving these little logging roads up into the mountains.
Oh jeez.
And we're both crunched back here, day after day after day. We're tired. We're hungry. We're sleep deprived. We're sunburnt. We're covered in bed bugs. We're eating beans and rice, and I'm like, dude, you got to quit hitting the potholes, because we're hitting the roof of the truck when he hits the potholes, and he's giggling because he's hitting the potholes.
Yeah.
And me and the other student are like, we're gonna kill you. We're gonna kill you if you hit any more potholes, right? Because we were just at the end of our wits, like, but you're just because you're sunburnt and tired and exhausted, and it's fun in hindsight.
Yeah.
But at the moment, you're about ready to freak out.
Very fair. Very fair. I picture I had some really tall friends who were 6'4", 6'5", and I just remember them trying to get into roller coasters, and that's all that reminded me of.
Yeah, and do that every day.
Yeah.
And then I'd be so tired because you slept in a tent, and you're like your shoulder's sore, and you're covered in bed bug bites and like mosquito bites, and right.
Yeah.
And it rained, and so now your clothes are wet, and like it's everything, right? But I don't mean to knock it. It's super super fun. It actually really is. But like
in the moment,
there's always, you can actually kind of predict that 2 weeks in, and everybody starts to turn a corner and everybody gets a little snippy and like. But the flip side is, so on that same trip, when we'd be coming down off the mountain in the Dominican Republic, there were Haitians there that were working on the farms up in the mountains, picking like mangoes and avocados.
Ooh.
So at the end of the day, when we were coming down, they'd wave at us and they'd jump in the back of the truck to get a free ride into town.
Yeah.
So we were fine with that. So as we were driving along, they'd bang on the roof and we'd open the little slider window and they'd start giving us like fresh off the vine mangoes and
Mangoes.
avocados
Yes.
because they had just picked them, and they're like, this is their way of saying thanks for the
Yeah.
ride. So we were getting like fresh from the Haitians' hands mangoes and avocados.
There you go.
Right. So like where else do you get to experience that?
Yeah. If you were, sorry, in the Dominican Republic, I have to ask because we have one. Her name is Sybil.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever see any rhinoceros iguanas while you were there?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
So
apparently less than 10 of them in Canada, and we have one of them. And
oh cool.
she's absolutely gorgeous to me. I love her so much.
So the rhinoceros iguanas there. I don't remember. So I'm trying to remember this. So I think I was there in like 2009.
Mm.
We flew into Santo Domingo, so on the kind of on the southern part of the island. Then I think we were in the Bani, which is a little town near Santo Domingo. Then we were up in the mountains, Palo Alto, I think. Then I think we were down on the Barahona Peninsula. We kind of bounced around,
Wow.
kind of southwestern part of the Dominican Republic near the Haitian border, and kind of up in the middle part of the mountains. Um, and I don't remember where we were during this, but we were in some kind of like national park, kind of a park area, and we pulled in, and it was kind of a gravel parking lot, and the iguanas came out of the forest. I think they were used to people feeding them,
Oh.
and so like when you pull up to like the beach and all the seagulls come up to your car like begging for food,
Yep.
that's what the iguanas were doing. They would just like come out of the forest and hang around the car, like they'd sit under the car, they'd sit in the shade, the shadow of the car because they wanted shade. They were feared. They would just walk up to you, like begging for French fries. It was super cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to travel so much and just see. Oh, sorry, I got a gecko on my chair now.
Oh, did he jump? There he goes.
She
Yeah.
jumped. Yeah. I would love to see some of the animals that even just that I work with in the wild.
Yeah.
Just see what it looks like in their natural habitat and things like that. Because I just want to travel too, which is fair.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So that was really cool. Um, it was super fun going. Like I did fieldwork in Queensland, Australia, and that was
Ooh.
really fun. Uh, it felt like a alternative version of the United States, right? Like Queensland's really rural,
Mhm.
uh, and so it reminded me very much of like Nevada, like out in the outback. Felt very much like kind of desert scrub, Eastern Oregon, Nevada, Utah kind of area, and the people there were really similar to Americans or similar to Canadians, but like a kind of a different version. It was really kind of
In
cool
a
to
different font, I'd like to say.
yes, exactly, right? It was because like we were way out and kind of in the middle of nowhere, and we wanted to because it was me, an American, and the local student I was working with had gotten his master's degree in Australia, but he was an American who had been living in Australia for the last few years and had an Australian wife, and but the two of us still sounded American,
Mhm.
right? We still talked with American English. So we were way out in the middle of nowhere, and we're looking at our field guides, and we're like, okay, we're looking for where we can find different kinds of geckos, and we find kind of this piece of property where there's this mountain, and we're like, we want to go there. We have to figure out whose property it is. So we kind of just like knocked on this random farm family's door. We came on their property. We knocked on their door. Hey, we're these two scientists from the university that's like 2 hours away. Can we come back at night with flashlights and look around your property for lizards? And like, if you did that in Utah or Nevada or Montana in the United States, if like a Canadian and an English, somebody from the UK was wandering around Montana, randomly knocking on people's doors, I don't know how well that would go.
No, I definitely wouldn't do that.
But they were like, oh yeah, like they come on in, like we'll have like they made us a cup of tea and like wanted to ask what we were doing and like what we were up to, and they were excited about what we were doing. They were friendly. Not that Americans or Canadians aren't friendly, but to let two strangers that like, we were Americans or Australians, Canadians, all similar, same, but different. Like we weren't Australians and we weren't trying to pretend to be Australians.
No.
but like they were friendly and wanted to invite us in and learn about what we were interested in and what we were doing. And yeah, so it was really, everybody was really, really friendly
That's awesome.
and like excited about biology and excited about what kind of animals we could find on their property and
Yeah.
like actually plugged in.
I really want to get to Australia, but one of my heroes growing up obviously was Steve Irwin. So
Yes, yep,
I gotta get there one day. I even have his a little pop figure of him who sits near my desk all the time with me here.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's definitely a
nice,
dream,
yeah,
definitely a dream vacation to get there.
yep. The kangaroo were exactly like deer in the
Yeah,
U.S. They were
they're
because
so
they were
soft.
crepuscular, just like deer, but they would jump in the roadway at night, just like deer,
Mm.
and you'd almost hit them all the time.
I've heard their deer there. I've gone up to our there's a kangaroo farm about 4 hours away from me, and I did make a day trip out of that. I drove 4 hours just to pet a kangaroo and come back home. Uh,
Nice, yeah.
it was so. I did not expect them to be so soft.
So the other thing is new. So wallabies are a smaller
Yeah.
kangaroo. Uh, they introduced wallabies to New Zealand.
Oh
So
yes.
there aren't supposed to be wallabies in
Yes.
New Zealand. As a byproduct of that, they can hunt the wallabies in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
They can make. I have a fleece, like a hoodie, like a hat, like a beanie
Toque.
from New Zealand with wallaby wool in it,
Oh, that would be
and you can order them online. So you can order a wallaby hat, like things with wallaby wool in them, if they're from New Zealand.
interesting. Okay, that's another place I
So,
gotta get to.
so yeah, New Zealand's super cool. So you know what? I think you would really, really like, because growing up in Western Washington, New Zealand was eerily the same as like the Olympic Peninsula.
Okay.
It felt exactly the same as the Olympic Peninsula, like cold, wet, and foggy and green.
The rainforest feeling. Yeah.
The cold rainforest and like the pebbly, foggy beach.
Mm-hmm.
It was exactly the same.
Feel
So
like
I
home. Okay.
drove right before COVID. It was actually like December 21, January 2020. Or I guess it was, yeah, January 2020, I think.
Yeah, before everything happened.
Right before COVID. I was in New Zealand, so we did a tour around the whole Southern Island.
Ooh.
And it was so much like Western Washington.
Did you ever see any tuataras?
I got to hold some.
Oh my
Yeah.
word.
So yeah, I wasn't sure if you were going to ask if you knew what tuataras were, if you're going to ask about them. So part of the reason of going was there was a big conference there, and so there was going to be this big conference, and so me and a friend of mine were like, we'll just go a week early and rent a van and drive around the whole
Yeah.
island, right?
Yeah.
And just camp out of the van for a week. And so I cold emailed 3 different zoos, like wildlife parks there, and was like, and they have a bunch of really cool endemic geckos too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, hey, I'm a scientist. I'm coming from the U.S. Do you have any geckos on display? Can I come take pictures of their feet? Can I come take measurements? Do you have any tuatara? Can I look at them? And so I got some replies.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the places we went to was a tuatara encounter. So it's me with a PhD in evolutionary biology who studies lizards, and my other the friend I went with, she also has a PhD. She studied skinks. So 2 very well trained lizard scientists, and we go to this. It's the first place we go is in essence a gift shop that also has a tuatara,
Oh.
and they do tuatara encounters. And so this woman came out with a tuatara on her arm. We weren't allowed to touch it. We weren't allowed to breathe on it. She told us tuatara facts, and we're both like, we kind of both know more about, like, we both knew more than she did.
Fair.
It was about 5 or 6 minutes long. Then the tuatara like moved slightly, and she's like, "Oh, it's getting stressed out. I got to put it back."
Oh.
And that was it. And it cost like $40.
Oh.
And we're like, "Okay, that was kind of lame." Like, we got to see it. Yeah, that was cool. Like, we had no expectations. We're like,
Yeah, that's fair.
we knew we could have given that demonstration, the 2 of us, but like they're a super endangered, rare, unique animal.
Yeah.
I understand that. The next place we went to was an actual zoo, more of like a zoo. So they had tuatara. They had a couple tuatara in like outdoor enclosures, like think of like a big dog run.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "Yeah, you can come in. We can't let. They wouldn't let us hold the tuatara, but the zookeepers could get in the enclosure. We could get in the enclosure, and they could like hold the tuatara's feet up against the glass so that I could take pictures of it."
Oh, there you go.
Right. So like I got to get in there with my camera and give them the piece of glass, and they got to like hold the tuatara up. So I got to actually sort of take some measurements, or at least some pictures of their feet, with the zookeeper like holding them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, we're getting better. That worked even better. Right. We got to actually indirectly interact with the tuatara, and I got to take some pictures. The third place we go to, because again, I had emailed these people and kind of set up these meetings, but I had no idea what to expect, what they were going to really let us do when we got there.
Mm-hmm.
The third place we went to, like the director didn't even meet us. It was one of like the volunteer, really young zookeepers. I think they were like almost like kind of probably a college kid that was working there. Came up and met us at the gate to kind of pick us up and take us into the zoo. And by now we're like, okay, what is this place really going to let us do? Because this was a full-on zoo now. So we're on our way back to the Tuatara building or whatever. And the zookeeper's like, well, you guys both study lizards, right? Like, you guys are okay holding them, right? And we're both like, yeah. So we get in there. They like scoop it up out of the enclosure. They give it to us. Like, we got to hold them. We got to like take pictures with it.
Love it.
We got to do whatever we want, take all the measurements we want. They were super cool with us. They went and got all the other geckos that they had on display and let us take pictures of those. Super cool. And so that was like, we weren't expecting that at all, because the other places had been like really particular.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, sure, that's fine. So it was also super funny because the conference was going to be starting in a few days. That was like a couple of towns away from where we were at the zoo. But again, this was the World Congress of Herpetology, so it was a big, like every 4 years, this big conference happens at some place around the world. So a lot of herpetologists, a lot of people that study reptiles and amphibians were kind of all coming to New Zealand that week. So as we're standing there in the zoo, like taking pictures and holding the tuatara, some other random guy walks up and he's like, "Are you guys here with the conference?" we're like, "Yeah." He's like, "Can I hold it?" He's like, "I'm here for the conference too. Can I hold that?" And the zookeeper's like, "Yeah, sure." So like he got to hold it. Like,
yes.
He's just some random dude who happened to who was there for the conference, who also studied lizards, who happened to go to the zoo that day, happened to see us holding it, figured out we were also other scientists there for the conference, and he got to hold it.
Yeah.
So I still see him at conferences like years later, and he's like, "I got to hold a tuatara because of you."
Yeah. That's amazing timing on his part. Like.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I did. I got to hold a tuatara. It was super cool, and take pictures of its feet, and take measurements of all the other New Zealand geckos they had.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but this was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? Yeah, I think we're good.
I think we went through all the questions, and I think I kind of went through the chat as well. Thank you so much. This has been absolutely amazing. I have a couple of teacher friends that I have been telling to check out Skype a Scientist as well.
Yeah.
And I also made a donation and everything for that.
Awesome.
I absolutely love it, and I'm so glad I found out about it through the podcastologies. So absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad. Is any other questions? Wolf Sanctuary was in Washington.
Yes.
If they don't go through as much oxygen, then they must be able to dive into water, I suppose. Again, I don't think geckos are going to be really excited about going into water.
No.
What's the gecko metabolism like? Do they graze? So geckos are either insectivores or frutivores. So they'll either eating bugs, whatever, arthropods, spiders, insects, or fruit, whatever fruit they can find. So they're probably just eating whenever they're lucky enough to run into something.
Yeah.
So it's not like grass where they're out like a cow where they're just always eating.
Or
they're probably always on the lookout for something to eat.
Or the tortoises. Oh man.
Right, or an iguana, right? An iguana will just kind of sit and eat grass.
We have 13 sulcata tortoises, and they go through a lot of grass.
right? Or even a bearded dragon
Yeah,
is
yeah.
more of a herbivore
Yeah.
than a gecko would be.
Yeah. Oh,
Cool.
Mike says thank you. He was my boss. This is the reptile guy there.
Yeah, yeah.
He says thank you, and yes, thank you so much for joining us. I will be also, hopefully the recording worked well. I will be also posting this on our socials as well for people who didn't get to tune in for the live stream. But yes, thank you so much. It was absolutely amazing talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Yeah, definitely send me all the links when everything gets put up.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.